He wasn't trained to break protocol. But that morning, under the cold fluorescent lights of Terminal B, Rex refused to move, and in a place built on order, that was the first thing that felt wrong. The airport breathed in rhythms of departure. Rolling suitcases, distant boarding calls echoing through steel and glass, the faint scent of burnt coffee clinging to the air. But Rex stood still, locked in place beside Staff Sergeant Daniel Hayes like a statue carved from instinct and memory, his amber eyes fixed on something no one else had noticed yet. Daniel felt it before he understood it, that subtle tension traveling down the leash, the kind that had saved lives before, the kind that meant Rex wasn't distracted. He was certain. Easy, Daniel muttered under his breath, giving a slight tug, not forceful, just enough to remind the dog of the job, of the training, of the rules they had followed for 6 years without fail. Rex didn't budge. Not a step, not a shift, just a quiet, unblinking focus that made the noise of the terminal fade into something distant and hollow. Around them, travelers passed by in blurred fragments. Business suits, crying toddlers, the soft hum of wheels over polished floors. But there, just beyond the security lane, sat a small figure that didn't belong to the motion of the world. A girl, no more than 8, curled into herself on a metal bench too large for her frame, her sneakers not quite touching the ground, her hands wrapped tightly around something pressed against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. She wasn't loud. That was the first thing Daniel noticed. No tantrum, no calls for help, just a quiet kind of crying that didn't ask to be heard, the kind that made people look away instead of step closer. Rex took one slow step forward, then another. Not the measured sweep of a trained K-9 scanning for threats. Not the sharp alert posture that signaled danger. This was different. Softer. Almost careful. Daniel frowned, his grip tightening slightly on the leash as his eyes followed the dog's line of sight. "Rex," he said, low and controlled, the voice of command that had never failed him before. "Stay on task." But the word task felt hollow the moment it left his mouth, because whatever Rex was responding to, it wasn't something written in any manual. The girl's shoulders trembled, just barely, as if she was trying not to be seen, trying to make herself smaller in a place that swallowed people whole. The object in her hands shifted slightly, catching a sliver of overhead light, a dull metallic glint, worn at the edges, hanging from a thin chain that looked too big for her neck. Daniel's breath slowed without him realizing it, his instincts catching up to something deeper than thought. Rex's ears tilted forward, his posture straightened, not rigid, not aggressive, but deliberate, like he was approaching something familiar instead of unknown. A flicker of unease passed through Daniel's chest. This wasn't detection. This wasn't training. This was recognition. And that didn't make sense. It couldn't. Rex had never been here before. The girl didn't look up. Not yet, her fingers tightening around the chain as if she felt something approaching without seeing it. The terminal lights reflected faintly in Rex's eyes as he stopped a few feet in front of her, his body perfectly still again. But this time it wasn't resistance. It was waiting. Waiting for something. Or someone. Daniel swallowed, the noise of the airport rushing back in for a brief second before fading again, like the world itself was holding its breath. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, more to himself than to the dog. Rex didn't answer the way dogs usually do. No bark. No movement. Just that quiet, unwavering gaze locked on a child who had no idea yet that something impossible was about to unfold right in front of her. And somewhere in that silence, something unseen began to connect, past to present, lost to memory, a thread too thin for humans to notice, but strong enough for a dog to follow without question. Before we begin, tell me where are witching from. Drop your country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels. Rex does not look at the crowds, not at the rolling bags or the uniformed officers passing by with quiet authority, and not even at Daniel when the leash tightens just a fraction more. Because whatever holds his attention now exists in a space beyond commands and routine, a place where training no longer leads and instinct takes over with a quiet certainty that cannot be argued with. Daniel exhales slowly, scanning the area with the practiced awareness of a Marine who has learned to read a room before it speaks. And yet nothing appears out of place. No raised voices, no abandoned luggage, no signs of immediate concern. only the steady rhythm of travelers moving forward with purpose, while one small corner of the terminal seems suspended in something else entirely. The girl shifts slightly on the bench, her fingers gripping the chain tighter, knuckles pale against the dull metal as if she is afraid it might disappear if she loosens her hold. And Daniel notices the detail now with sharper focus. The edges of the tag worn smooth, the engraving faint from years of contact, not new, not decorative, but carried, kept, held onto for reasons that go beyond sentiment. Rex takes another step, slow and deliberate, his paws silent against the polished floor, his posture changing in a way Daniel has only seen once or twice before, not in training, not in drills, but in those rare moments when the dog seemed to remember something instead of respond to it. Rex, Daniel says again, quieter this time, less command and more question, because something about this feels different, and the certainty he has always relied on begins to shift into something unfamiliar. Something that does not come from protocol but from a deeper place he cannot quite name. The girl finally looks up, not fully, just enough for her eyes to meet the shape in front of her. And there is a pause, a fragile second where recognition does not yet exist, but something else does, something like hesitation, like the edge of a memory she cannot place. Her eyes are red but not wild, her breathing uneven but controlled, like she has been holding herself together for longer than someone her age should have to. And when she sees Rex standing there, unmoving, watching her with that steady, unwavering gaze, she does not flinch, she does not pull away, she simply stares back as if trying to understand why. This dog feels familiar in a way that makes no sense. Daniel feels the shift the moment it happens, subtle but undeniable, the air between them tightening, not with danger, but with meaning, and he takes a step closer, careful now, aware that whatever is unfolding is not something to interrupt too quickly. The overhead speaker crackles with another boarding announcement, distant and hollow, the sound stretching across the terminal like a reminder that the world is still moving even if this moment is not. And somewhere behind him, a security officer slows just enough to notice the unusual stillness, the K9 that is not working, the Marine who is not correcting him, the child who is no longer crying but no longer moving either. Rex lowers his head slightly, not submissive, not cautious, but respectful, the way he has been trained to approach something important, something worth attention. And Daniel feels a faint tightening in his chest as a memory flickers at the edge of his mind. Something from years ago, something he cannot quite grasp yet. The girl's lips part as if she wants to speak, but no words come, only a small breath that catches halfway, and her fingers loosen just enough for the chain to slip forward, the tag swinging gently and catching the light again. This time long enough for Daniel to see the faint outline of letters pressed into metal that has seen too many days to remain sharp. Rex stops just in front of her now, close enough to reach, close enough to confirm whatever it is he already seems to know. And for the first time since they entered the terminal, he does not look like a working dog. He looks like something else entirely, something older than training, something tied to memory, to loyalty, to a promise that may not have ended where Daniel once thought it did. Daniel does not pull the leash again, does not give another command, because the truth settles in quietly and without permission that whatever Rex is doing right now is not a mistake, and whatever comes next is something neither of them can stop. The distance between them closes without urgency, without sound, until Rex is standing just inches from the girl's knees, his breath steady, his eyes no longer searching but settled, as if he has already found what he came for. And for a moment nothing happens, not in the way people expect things to happen. No sudden movement, no dramatic shift, only a quiet stillness that feels heavier than noise. Daniel watches closely now, every sense sharpened, every instinct alert, but there is no threat to read, no signal to interpret, only the slow unfolding of something he does not yet understand, and that uncertainty pulls him deeper into the moment than any danger ever could. The girl looks down at Rex, her grip on the chain loosening just enough for the tag to fall forward into view. And this time she does not pull it back, does not hide it. She simply lets it rest against her small hands, as if she no longer has the strength to keep it close. Rex lowers himself carefully, not lying down, not sitting fully, but positioning himself in a way that brings him to her level, his posture composed, deliberate, almost ceremonial. And Daniel feels that same flicker again, that sense that this is not random, that this is something learned long ago, something carried forward without words. The girl blinks slowly, her tears still there but quieter now, no longer falling, just resting at the edges of her eyes. And when she finally speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper, soft and uneven, like it has not been used in a while. You look like him, she says, not to Daniel, not to anyone else, but to Rex, as if the dog is the only one who can understand what she means. Daniel shifts his weight slightly, the leash slack between his fingers, and for the first time since this began, he does not feel the need to control what is happening, only to witness it. The girl's hands tremble as she lifts the chain just enough to look at it, her thumb brushing over the worn letters as if tracing something she already knows by heart. And then she looks back at Rex, her expression changing, not brighter, not happier, but steadier, like a small piece of something inside her has found its place. Rex's ears tilt forward again, his gaze softening in a way Daniel has only seen when the dog was off duty, when the world was quiet, and the past had not yet faded into distance. And then, slowly, Rex shifts his posture, his back straightening, his chest lifting, his body aligning with a precision that is unmistakable to anyone who has ever worn a uniform. Daniel feels it before it happens, that tightening in his chest, that pull of recognition that does not come from thought, but from memory. And his breath catches just slightly as Rex brings one front paw up, not abruptly, not mechanically, but with a controlled, practiced motion that belongs to a different place, a different time. The girl inhales sharply, her eyes widening just enough to break through the quiet calm she had settled into, and her fingers tighten again around the chain, as if something deep inside her has been touched, something she did not expect to feel here, in this place, in this moment. Around them, the world begins to notice, subtle at first, a pause in movement. A glance held a second longer than usual, a security officer stepping closer. Without quite knowing why, drawn not by alarm but by the strange stillness that now surrounds the three of them, Daniel does not move, does not speak, because he understands now that whatever Rex is about to do is not a command he gave, and not something that can be stopped once it begins. The girl's lips part again, her voice catching on the edge of a word she has not yet said, and her eyes lock onto Rex with a fragile intensity, like she is waiting for something she has been missing without knowing it. Rex holds the position for a fraction of a second longer, his entire body aligned, steady, certain, and in that suspended moment, before anything else can happen, before anyone can interrupt or question or explain, something unseen passes between them, something quiet and undeniable, like a memory stepping out of the past and into the present without asking permission. Rex completes the motion with a stillness so precise it feels almost sacred, his paw raised, his posture unwavering. The kind of salute that is not taught lightly and never performed without meaning. And for a heartbeat, the world around them does not just quiet. It pauses, as if even the distant hum of engines and announcements understands that something larger than routine has taken hold of this moment. Daniel feels it deep in his chest, a pull that tightens into recognition before his mind can catch up, because that posture, that exact angle, that discipline and movement, it belongs to a world he has lived in, a world where gestures carry weight far beyond their form. And yet Rex has never been trained to do this here, not in an airport, not in front of a child, not outside the boundaries of command. The girl stares at him, her breath catching in a way that is no longer just sadness but something sharper, something that reaches into memory, and slowly, almost as if guided by something she does not fully understand, her small hand releases the chain and lifts, unsteady at first, then firmer, her fingers aligning in a way that mirrors the gesture in front of her. "Daddy said," she begins, her voice trembling, the words fragile as they form. "You always salute, so they know you remember." And the sentence breaks softly at the end, not from confusion but from the weight it carries, as if saying it out loud makes it more real than she is ready for. Daniel's throat tightens, the edges of something long buried beginning to surface, not fully formed yet, but close enough to feel. And he takes one slow step closer, his boots quiet against the polished floor, his eyes drawn not just to the girl, but to the tag now resting against her palm. The metal catching light again, this time long. Enough for him to read more than just its shape. The letters are worn, softened by time and touch, but still there, still legible if you know how to look, and Daniel's gaze fixes on them with a growing intensity, his breath slowing as each detail comes into focus piece by piece. Around them, the subtle shift becomes undeniable. Security personnel now standing still instead of passing by, travelers slowing their steps, conversations fading mid-sentence as eyes turn toward the quiet center of something they cannot quite explain, drawn not by urgency, but by the unmistakable gravity of a moment that feels important without anyone saying why. Rex does not move, does not lower his paw, holding the salute. With a patience that is not effort but purpose, his eyes locked gently onto the girl's face, not demanding, not expecting, simply present in a way that feels steady enough to lean on. The girl's hand trembles as she keeps it raised, her posture imperfect but sincere, and for the first time since Daniel noticed her, she is not shrinking into herself, not trying to disappear, but standing, in her own small way, in something that feels like connection instead of loss. Daniel exhales slowly, the memory now pressing closer, the outline of it forming around a name he has not thought about in months, maybe longer, a name tied to a voice, to laughter, to a presence that once filled space in a way that made everything feel grounded. His eyes drop again to the tag, the engraved lines catching just enough light to reveal the truth waiting there, and his heartbeat shifts, not faster, but heavier, as recognition finally begins to take shape. The girl lowers her hand slightly, just enough to look down at the tag again, her thumb brushing over the letters with a tenderness that speaks of repetition, of nights spent holding on to something that cannot answer back. And when she looks up again, her eyes meet Daniel's for the first time, uncertain, searching, as if asking a question she does not yet have the words for. Daniel meets her gaze, steady but softer now, the authority in his posture giving way to something more human, something that understands the space she is standing in, without needing explanation. And in that shared silence, the distance between stranger and familiar begins to close in a way neither of them expected. Rex finally shifts, just slightly, not breaking the moment, but guiding it forward, his raised paw lowering with care, his head dipping a fraction as if acknowledging something that has already been said without words. And in that quiet transition, the weight of what just happened settles into the air around them, not fading, not passing, but staying, waiting for what comes next to give it meaning. Daniel does not speak right away because the name is already forming in his mind before his eyes fully confirm it. And when the letters on the tag finally settle into something clear, something undeniable, it feels less like reading and more like remembering, his breath catching just enough to make the moment stretch longer than it should. Michael Carter, the engraving worn but unmistakable, the edges softened by time, but the meaning still sharp, still intact. And for a second Daniel is no longer standing in an airport terminal, but somewhere else entirely, somewhere quieter, heavier, where voices carried through radios and trust was measured in seconds. And silence meant everything. His hand tightened slightly around the leash, not pulling, just grounding himself in the present as the weight of that name settles into his chest. The girl watches him now, her eyes searching his face with a fragile hope she does not fully understand, and she shifts forward just a little on the bench, as if drawn by something in his reaction. You know him?" she asks, her voice small but steady. Not demanding, not expecting too much, just asking the question that has been sitting quietly inside her. Daniel exhales slowly, the answer already there, but not easy to carry, and he lowers himself down just enough to meet her at eye level, his posture softening in a way that has nothing to do with rank or duty. Rex steps closer beside him, his presence calm and unwavering, his gaze moving between the two of them as if holding the space together. "I knew him," Daniel says finally, his voice low, measured, each word placed carefully. "He was one of the best men I have ever served with. And the truth of that does not need decoration, does not need explanation. It simply exists between them." The girl's fingers tighten around the tag again. But this time it is not from fear, it is from recognition, from hearing his name spoken by someone who understands what it means. He said, "You never forget your team," she whispers, her voice trembling just enough to carry the weight of something repeated many times before, something held on to when everything else felt uncertain. Daniel nods slowly, his eyes softening as the memory settles more fully into place, the sound of Carter's voice echoing faintly in the back of his mind, the way he used to say things like that without making them sound like rules, more like promises. Rex lowers his head gently, inching closer to the girl until his shoulder brushes lightly against her knee, not asking for attention, just offering presence, the kind that does not leave when things get quiet. The girl hesitates for a second, then slowly, carefully, she reaches out, her small hand resting against the side of his neck, fingers sinking slightly into the thick fur as if testing whether he is real, whether this moment is something she is allowed to have. Rex does not move away, does not shift, he simply stays, his eyes closing halfway in a calm that feels earned, not given. Around them, the airport begins to breathe again, but softer now, conversations returning in hushed tones, footsteps quieter, as if the space itself has adjusted to what just passed through it. Daniel watches the girl's hand on Rex, the way her shoulders have lowered just slightly, the tension easing in a way that does not fix everything but makes it possible to stand a little steadier. He used to, Daniel begins, then pauses, the words catching for a moment before finding their way out. He used to talk about you. And the girl looks up immediately, her eyes widening not with shock, but with something closer to relief, like hearing that she still exists in a place she thought might be gone. He did? She asks, her voice barely holding together. And Daniel nods again, more certain this time, because that part he remembers clearly, the way Carter would pull out a worn photo, the way his voice would change just slightly when he spoke about home, about someone waiting, about a reason to come back. Every chance he got, Daniel says. And it is not a comfort offered lightly. It is a truth placed carefully into the space between them, something solid enough to hold on to. The girl looks down at the tag again, her thumb tracing the letters once more. But now the motion is different, less desperate, more grounded, as if the name carries not just loss but connection, not just absence but something that still remains. Rex shifts slightly, pressing closer in a quiet gesture that feels almost like reassurance. And Daniel realizes then that whatever brought them to this exact moment, this exact place, it was not coincidence, not randomness, but something quieter, something that does not need explanation to be understood, because sometimes the bond does not end where people think it does. Sometimes it just waits until it is needed again. The name does not leave the air once it is spoken. It settles there, quiet but present, like something that refuses to fade even when no one repeats it, and the girl holds onto it in a way that feels different now, not like she is trying to keep it from disappearing, but like she is finally allowed to share it with someone who understands. Daniel watches her carefully, noticing the shift that is small but real, the way her shoulders are no longer pulled tight toward her ears, the way her breathing has slowed just enough to steady, and he recognizes that change not as healing, not yet, but as the first step towards something that might become it. Rex remains close, his body angled slightly toward her, his presence constant, grounding, and when the girl's hand moves again, this time it does not hesitate, her fingers sliding more firmly into the fur at his neck, holding there with a quiet trust that does not need to be earned in this moment because somehow it already has been. I am going to see him, she says suddenly, her voice still soft but clearer now. And Daniel's eyes lift just slightly at the words, not in surprise, but in recognition of what she means, of where this path leads. They said, he is coming home. She continues, her gaze dropping back to the tag, her thumb tracing the letters again, slower this time, more deliberate. But Mom could not. She could not come with me yet. And there is no accusation in her voice, no confusion, just a simple statement shaped by something too heavy for her to fully carry alone. Daniel nods once, slowly, understanding more than she says, the spaces between her words filled with things he has seen before, things he does not need explained. The terminal around them moves again, but it does not press in, it does not break what is formed here. It simply exists at the edges, a reminder that time continues even when moments feel suspended. A soft chime echoes overhead. Another boarding call, distant and routine, but the girl does not react to it. her focus still centered on the space between herself, Rex, and Daniel, as if this is the only place that feels real right now. Rex shifts slightly, lowering himself more fully now beside her, his body close enough that his warmth can be felt through the thin fabric of her clothes. And when she leans just a fraction toward him, it is not by accident. It is instinct, the same kind that brought him to her in the first place. Daniel watches that movement, the quiet way she rests against the dog without thinking, and something inside him tightens again, not painfully, but with a weight that reminds him why this matters, why moments like this are not small even when they seem to be. He would have liked you, the girl says after a pause, her voice softer again, almost thoughtful, and Daniel lets out a quiet breath he did not realize he was holding, a faint, almost imperceptible shift in his expression as the words settle in. He would have liked you too, Daniel replies gently, and this time there is no hesitation in his voice, no careful choosing of words, just truth, simple and steady. The girl nods slightly, as if that confirms something she needed to hear, and her grip on Rex's fur loosens just enough to rest instead of hold, her hand staying there not out of fear, but because it feels right. A nearby security officer glances over again, then away, sensing that whatever is happening here does not require interruption, and the flow of people continues around them, curved subtly to avoid the stillness at the center. Daniel shifts his stance just enough to stand more comfortably, but he does not step away, does not pull Rex back into formation, because the rules feel different here, less rigid, shaped more by presence than procedure. The girl lifts the tag once more, holding it up just enough for the light to catch, and for a brief moment the engraved name shines clearer than before, as if time itself has stepped aside to let it be seen. Rex's eyes follow the movement, calm and steady, and then return to her face, as if confirming again that she is not alone in this moment, that whatever she carries does not have to be held by herself. And in that quiet exchange, without announcement or explanation, something shifts once more, not in the world around them, but within it, a subtle change that does not fix what is broken but makes it possible to keep going anyway. The words she speaks do not fade when she finishes them. They linger in the quiet space between them, shaped by something deeper than explanation. And Daniel feels the weight of them settle into a place he has kept guarded for a long time, because hearing that someone is coming home never means just one thing. It carries with it a silence that only certain people understand. He watches her carefully, the way she holds the tag now not like a shield, but like a connection, and he realizes that she is not confused about what is happening, not lost in it. She understands in her own way, a way that does not need all the details to feel the truth. Rex shifts slightly again, his body pressing closer, his head lowering just enough to rest gently against her leg. And this time when she leans into him, it is not tentative, it is certain, her small frame settling into the warmth he offers as if she has known it longer than this moment allows. The overhead lights reflect softly against the polished floor, casting faint shadows that stretch and blend. And for a second Daniel notices how still everything feels again, not frozen, not paused, but held, like the world has chosen to give this moment the space it needs. He used to say that too, Daniel says quietly, his voice steady but softer now, less guarded, about coming home. And the girl looks up at him immediately, her eyes searching his face again, not with fear, but with a need to understand something she has been carrying alone. Did he talk about me a lot? She asks, the question coming out slower, more careful, as if she is unsure whether she is allowed to ask it. Daniel does not hesitate this time, because the answer is clear, it always has been, every chance he had, he says, and there is no weight of formality in his voice now, only memory, only truth. The girl nods slowly, her lips pressing together as if holding back something that does not need to be spoken out loud, and her hand moves again, resting more comfortably against Rex's neck, her fingers no longer gripping but simply there, present. Rex's ears flick slightly at the sound of distant footsteps approaching, not in alert, but in awareness, and Daniel follows the motion with his eyes, noticing a woman moving through the terminal with purpose, her gaze scanning the area with quiet urgency, her pace steady but not rushed, as if she is searching for something she hopes is still where she left it. The girl does not notice her yet, her attention still anchored to the space she has found here. But Daniel sees the resemblance immediately, not just in features, but in the way the woman carries herself, the quiet strength beneath something heavier, something worn but not broken. Rex lifts his head just slightly, his gaze shifting past Daniel for a brief second, then returning to the girl as if confirming something only he understands. And Daniel feels that subtle change again, that quiet signal that something is about to move forward whether they are ready for it or not. The woman slows as she gets closer, her eyes landing first on the child, then on the dog, then on Daniel. And there is a moment of hesitation, a pause where recognition has not yet fully formed, but something deeper has already begun. The girl finally looks up, following the shift in the air rather than the movement itself. And when her eyes find the woman standing just a few steps away, something in her expression changes again, not breaking, not falling apart, but opening, like a door that has been closed just long enough to feel heavy when it moves. Rex remains steady, his presence unchanged, his body still close to hers, anchoring her in a way that allows her to look up without losing her balance. And Daniel takes a quiet step back, not leaving, but making space, understanding without being told that this moment now belongs to something larger than him. The woman exhales slowly, her shoulders lowering just slightly as her gaze softens, and in that shared silence between mother and child, between past and present, between loss and something that still remains, the truth settles fully into place, not spoken, not explained, but understood all the same. That sometimes the ones who cannot come back still find a way to keep their promises through the ones who remain. The space between them closes without a word. The woman stepping forward slowly as if afraid that moving too fast might break something fragile that has just begun to hold. Her eyes never leaving the girl, taking in every detail, every small shift in posture, every quiet sign that something has changed. The girl does not run to her, does not collapse into her arms the way people might expect. Instead, she stays where she is, grounded by the steady presence beside her, her hand still resting in Rex's fur, as if that connection is part of what allows her to face this moment without falling apart. "Emily," the woman says softly, her voice carrying a warmth that is layered with exhaustion, with relief, with something deeper that has no simple name. And the sound of her name spoken like that seems to settle something inside the girl that had been holding itself too tightly. Emily looks up at her, her eyes no longer searching but recognizing, and she gives a small nod, not because she needs to confirm anything, but because she understands that this is the next step, that this moment is not ending, it is shifting. The woman's gaze flickers briefly to Rex, then to Daniel, a silent question forming in her eyes. Not about what happened, but about how, and Daniel meets it with a steady calm, a slight nod that does not explain but reassures. Because some things are not meant to be explained out loud. He came to her, Daniel says quietly, his voice low enough that it does not interrupt the moment, only supports it. And the woman exhales slowly, her shoulders lowering just a fraction more, as if that simple sentence carries enough truth to answer what she cannot ask. Rex remains where he is, his body still, his presence constant. And when the woman steps closer, Emily's hand does not leave his fur immediately. It lingers there for a second longer, as if she is making sure the connection will not disappear. When she lets go, then, slowly, she shifts forward, her other hand reaching toward her mother, not with urgency, but with certainty, and the woman meets it without hesitation, her fingers wrapping gently around Emily's, holding it with a care that speaks of everything they have been through without needing to say it. Daniel takes another small step back, giving them space, his posture relaxed now in a way that has nothing to do with duty, and everything to do with understanding that this moment belongs to them. Rex lifts his head slightly, his gaze moving between Emily and her mother, and for a brief second, his ears tilt in a way that feels almost like acknowledgement, as if he recognizes that what needed to happen has happened. The overhead lights hum softly, the distant announcements continuing their steady rhythm. But here, in this small space carved out of movement and noise, something quieter settles in, something that does not demand attention but holds it anyway. Emily looks down at the tag once more, her thumb brushing over the letters with a gentler motion now. And then she looks back at Rex, her expression soft, steady, no longer searching for something to hold on to, but acknowledging something that has already been given. "Thank you," she whispers, the words simple, almost too small for what they carry, but enough, more than enough, and Rex does not move, does not react in any visible way. He simply remains there, as if the understanding between them does not require response. The woman glances at Daniel again, her eyes filled with a quiet gratitude that does not need to be spoken, and Daniel inclines his head slightly in return, not accepting thanks, not deflecting it, just acknowledging it as part of the moment. Rex finally shifts, just a step, moving back toward Daniel's side, the leash falling gently into its natural place between them, but the connection does not break. It simply changes form, becoming something that does not require proximity. To remain real, Emily watches him for a second longer, her hand now fully in her mother's, her shoulders steadier than before, and as they stand there together, the weight of what brought them here does not disappear, but it no longer stands alone. It is accompanied now by something else, something quieter, something that will stay with her long after this place is gone from memory. The moment does not end with a sound. It fades the way light does at the edge of evening, slowly, gently, without asking permission, and Daniel stands there for a second longer than necessary, watching as Emily and her mother begin to move forward together, their steps quiet but certain, their hands still joined in a way that says more than anything either of them could speak. Rex settles back into place beside him, the leash resting loosely now, no tension, no command needed, just presence. And for a brief second Daniel glances down at him, studying the calm in his posture, the quiet in his eyes, and he realizes that whatever just happened did not come from training, did not come from instinct alone, but from something deeper, something carried across time in ways that cannot be measured or explained. The terminal begins to return fully to itself, the hum of conversation rising, the rhythm of travel reasserting its place, footsteps blending into the polished floor once more, and yet there is a subtle difference now, something softened, something quieter, as if the space itself has absorbed what it witnessed and chosen to carry it forward in silence. Emily pauses after a few steps, her grip on her mother's hand steady, and she turns back just once, not with urgency, not with hesitation, but with intention, her eyes finding Rex first, then Daniel, and for a moment nothing is said, nothing is needed, because the look she gives carries everything, gratitude, understanding, and something that feels almost like recognition of a promise she did not know had been kept. Daniel nods once, a small movement, barely noticeable to anyone else. But enough, more than enough, and Rex remains still beside him, his gaze steady, as if confirming that the moment does not need to be held onto to remain real. Emily lifts her hand slightly, not a wave, not quite, but something close, something shaped by memory, by what she has been taught, and Daniel feels it again, that quiet pull in his chest, the echo of a voice, the weight of a bond that does not end with absence. Then she turns back, her steps continuing forward beside her mother, and together they disappear gradually into the flow of people, not lost, not swallowed, but carried onward, part of something larger that does not erase what came before it. Daniel exhales slowly, the breath leaving him with a steadiness he did not have when this began, and he shifts his stance slightly, his hand resting briefly against Rex's side, not as a command, not as a signal, but as acknowledgement. Rex glances up at him for a moment, his expression unchanged, calm, certain, and then looks forward again, ready to move when needed, ready to remain when not. There is no announcement, no explanation, no moment where everything is made clear, only the quiet understanding that something important has taken place, something that does not require proof to be true. Daniel takes one step forward, then another, returning to the path he was already on. The routine waiting, the duty unchanged, and yet not entirely the same, because now there is something added to it, something that does not alter the mission but deepens it. Behind them, the space where they stood looks no different than before, just another stretch of terminal floor beneath bright lights and passing shadows. But for those who were there, for those who felt it even without understanding it, it is not empty, it holds a trace, a quiet imprint of a moment where memory reached across distance and found its way home. And somewhere within that stillness, without sound, without ceremony, a promise was kept, not by the one who made it, but by the one who remembered. A quiet moment unfolds inside a busy airport when a U.S. Marine and his loyal K-9 encounter a grieving child holding onto a memory that refuses to fade. What begins as a routine security shift turns into one of the most powerful animal stories you will ever witness, where instinct, loyalty, and unseen bonds guide a trained German shepherd toward a connection no one else can see. As the young girl clutches a worn military tag and struggles with silent grief, the Marine begins to realize that his partner is not reacting to danger, but to something deeper, something rooted in shared history and emotional memory. In this deeply moving entry among unforgettable animal stories, the K-9 gently approaches the child, breaking protocol in a way that stuns everyone around. And what follows is not action but presence, not noise but stillness, as the dog becomes a bridge between past and present. The emotional weight builds when the Marine recognizes the name engraved on the tag, connecting the child to a fallen comrade. And, in that moment, the story transforms into one of those rare animal stories where loyalty extends beyond time and duty. As the German shepherd performs an unexpected gesture that mirrors military honor, the entire terminal seems to pause, and the child responds not with fear, but with recognition, revealing a bond shaped by love, loss, and memory. This powerful narrative stands out among animal stories because it does not rely on spectacle, but on quiet emotional truth, where a simple interaction becomes a moment of healing for both the Marine and the child. As the child's mother arrives and the pieces fall into place, the presence of the K-9 allows grief to soften just enough for connection to return, showing how even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary moments can unfold. Among the most touching animal stories, this one reminds us that loyalty does not end when someone is gone, and that sometimes the ones who remain carry forward the promises left behind. In the end, the Marine returns to duty and the child walks forward with her mother. But something invisible has changed, something that lingers beyond the moment, making this one of those rare animal stories that stays with you long after it ends, where silence speaks louder than words, and a single act of instinct becomes a lasting symbol of love, honor, and remembrance.